Hey everyone, it's Goose. I want to go ahead and make a video on fair value gaps, FVGs, and how I use them in conjunction with Brittany's strategy. Now, I might not be able to cover everything since I'm just going to focus on a general basis of how I use it. And if there's any further questions and things I didn't get to cover, I'll go ahead and make another video for you guys. So if you have questions, write them down, throw them into a study group, and I'll go ahead and write them down for future videos for you guys. Now I'm going to go ahead and use Top Step X. Price might be slightly different compared to Thinkorswim, TradingView, probably Ninja and Tradeovate. So if that's the case, just use the same concepts I'm showing here and just apply it to what you're seeing in your charts. Okay, let's dive in and discuss what a fair value gap is. It's essentially inefficient price action or an imbalance of price. So as you can see, there's days where price will just go ahead and range and slowly kind of break out, and all of a sudden you get this huge flush, and it'll leave this gap, and that's the inefficient price action. Now right now I'm looking at the daily, and you'll see that eventually it'll want to come back up into this area, and it's either going to fill it or it's going to reject it. In this example, we're just kind of seeing that price rejected and came back down. So you'll learn that FVGs are basically a good indicator of seeing, okay, is price sort of ranging? And if so, then these are the days that I'm going to take these small base hits. I'm not going to hit those huge home runs. And what's the trend? Where's price trying to go? So that's sort of how like my brain is kind of, looking to understand what price is trying to do. Okay, so I've narrowed it down to one time frame that I really like. As you can see right now, I'm looking at the daily, but the thing about the daily chart is that I feel like it takes too long for price to come back up, and it's good for days that you may need a step back and sort of like, okay, I'm having a tough couple weeks. This month is really tough. Go ahead and step back and look at the daily and see how price is looking. If it's ranging, then yeah, okay, that makes sense. Maybe something kind of like last month, Powell was gonna talk about Fed rate cuts, and the market was kind of waiting for that. So a lot of people struggled, but the daily is good to analyze the bigger picture, and it'll take weeks for stuff to happen. So in this example, like this top one, this was July 19th. It didn't come back up until almost a month. Now, I've noticed that going from the 1 hour and anything below is maybe just too much stuff to look at, and I don't like my charts cluttering everything. So I've narrowed it down to the 4 hour, and I feel like that's a pretty good balance of looking for those somewhat bigger moves and actually working out. Sometimes I feel like the 1 hour chart, it doesn't quite get to the FVG, because sometimes it might be one of those continuation days, and I found myself forcing plays and not working out because I'm like, okay, I think it's going to come back down to the FVG, and it never does. So I like the 4 hour. I like to keep things simple and clean, and it helps me keep that overall bigger point of view in conjunction with the strategies that Brittany has taught. So let's kind of identify some of these FVGs. So we're going to go switch it to the 4 hour, and let's look at crude oil. So we'll just delete these. Today, we've broken out of this range right here, and right here we're seeing this FVG that I'm seeing right now. And I usually, when I see a candle break out like this, I want to wait for the next candle to close. Now, the market had just opened and it's after hours, so I'm expecting price to sort of just kind of chop around a little bit and maybe pull back a little bit. So I don't necessarily want to draw this just yet, because if we look left, there's another FVG, and crude oil has finally got into that. So let's dive in and I'll show you how I draw it. Now, this was on August the 30th of August, and I'm gonna go ahead, grab my rectangle tool. Now, when you see a candle like this, you have to grab the low of the previous candle. Usually it's a wick, but for this instance, it's a really small wick, and then you get the other wick of the following candle, and you just draw the rectangle right here. Now, in TradingView, TopStep-X, I have this midpoint, and how to get that is you just click it and go to the gear setting here. I like to extend it to the right also as well. You'll see this toggle button for the middle line. Now, if you don't have that, say you're on Thinkorswim, you can go ahead and just add a fib level and just add the 50% from, you know, the top of the box or whatever, and it'll give you a midpoint as well. Now, let's zoom back out, and as you can see, this was, all right, yeah, this was last month. It's taken about just over a month to finally get up there. We could also analyze another FVG. So this is another example where you see 3 candles kind of break out like this. Usually I'll grab this middle one and we'll go ahead and draw it just so we can analyze this as well. So that's pretty close to the wick and to the wick of this as well. And as you can see, price never really got to the midpoint here. It struggled and came back down, and boy, oh boy, look at that price action. It doesn't look clean at all. Finally broke down, made another FVG. We'll go ahead and draw this one in as well. And you got one right here. See, price, now we can analyze this as well. Price was able to get to the midpoint, but it just kept rejecting, had a pull back down, but managed to finally fill it, but never really quite got back up, and it came back down, flushed down, and if you zoom back out, I think, if I recall, it tested a previous low. So yeah, you can see this lows from December. It finally came back down there and bounced. Now you can see that you're trying to look for another FVG. I guess there's this one as well here, but now price has rebalanced and finally crept up, and you don't really see any real FVGs left behind. Maybe this very small one, but not good enough for me to really like identify it. And price has finally crept up, filled this one, or actually the first time, rejected, came back down, and then finally crept up, filled it, came back down, pulled back to the midpoint, kind of held, and pulled right back down. I guess at this point you could kind of create another FVG if this one kind of filled and you're trying to see, okay, is it going to try to come up to this one? Maybe it might try to focus on this first one before getting up there. Never quite got there. Pulled all the way back down. Created this FVG, which we're kind of coming up to now more recent days. So at this point, I would just get rid of this middle one. Probably get rid of this one as well. I'll go ahead and draw this one. So the top of the wick, so now that we're on an uptrend, we'll go ahead and draw one right above the wick of that and the low wick of this red candle right here. And as you can see, price tried to come retest it, held support, came back up. Now you can draw another FVG right here as well, or another rectangle tool, and just analyze it. As you can see, price tried to break up, kind of fighting right here, finally filled it, managed to hold up above the midpoint, creating another FVG that we can draw. So I would just get rid of this one. And now that we're open, I kind of want to focus on this one and not so much on this one right here, because if it holds up above 73.84, we might try to fill this, and the next area might be 74.69 to see if it can break above it or if it's just going to pull right back down. So this is how I analyze it. Now we can go ahead and use some of these trend lines and create this, get these 2 touch points. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the fib level as well. So I kind of want to pull from this high to this low. Oh, sorry, wrong way. So we'll get the lows from this, from September 9th to the high of August 25th. And you can kind of see the fib levels also kind of holding back here. So price came back up, pulled back down, and I want to see price hold. What's the midpoint? Yeah, it's about right there right now. It's 73.83. Now you got to see if it's going to pull back down, hold 73.06 to go back up, or it might just go all the way up, and then maybe you can see a rejection if it can't break out and get to 75. So either we're going to see it come up, pull back, retest this green trend line, and maybe fall back, or I'm expecting another scenario where it might just lose 73.83, the midpoint, come back down, hold the lows here, bounce up. Or if it comes to retest this green trend line, we might just see a pullback and maybe retest these fibs and potentially this other FVG that was left behind. So hopefully that makes a little bit more sense in the approach I have for FVGs. If you guys have any other questions, please send them my way. I will try to do a better video to explain further things. I feel like there's so much I can talk about with FVGs, and I don't want to overwhelm you guys, but at least like you can kind of get a better sense of how you can apply FVGs when either you're struggling or you want to see a bigger point of view in conjunction with Brittany's strategies.